So you just tell me one thing and give me an honest answer. Why does God permit evil?
Well, Alan could probably answer it better, but, well, I think one reason is to enable us to deepen our understanding of him.
Mm-hmm. All right. Then what about my child? She developed leukemia. After months of suffering, she died. Now, she was innocent. Absolutely innocent. She didn't even know what sin was. Now, how is she going to profit from this experience? She's dead, I tell you. She's dead.
George, that question has a very reasonable answer presented to us in the Bible.
Oh, come on now, people. Don't brush me aside that way. Many use that method to avoid giving an answer when they don't know the answer. Why are there tornadoes where the good and the bad suffer alike? Huh? Why are there earthquakes where the believers and the non-believers are left homeless, where many are destroyed? Why are innocent people killed? And why does a church, for example, burn down?
Hello, friends. Why does God permit evil? The world is filled with suffering. Many times the innocent suffer while the guilty go unpunished, as illustrated by the experiences you are about to see portrayed. This Bible Answers program searches for the answer to the question as to why God permits these conditions. The Bible Answers programs are brought to you as a public service and with a desire to increase appreciation of the great and loving God of the Bible. And now on with the program.
You know, Dee Dee was making me my favorite banana cake when she suddenly had the thought, why not make another one for our dear friends, the Wilsons? So here it is by special messenger, and it's still warm.
Alan, wasn't Dee Dee a dear?
Yes, that's very nice of her.
By the way, how is Dee Dee? Is she getting over things?
Slowly. Slowly, we'll both become accustomed to the fact that our child has been snatched from us. The most distressing thing is trying to reconcile the fact of what's happened with the idea that there is a loving God in heaven who is supposed to be watching over the interests of his people here on earth.
Yes, I know. But, George, you aren't the only ones who've asked that question.
No.
I mean, in war, for example, when the cities are destroyed, the young, the old, infants, the righteous, the wicked, the believers and the unbelievers perish because of man's inhumanity to man. The same question is asked. Look, George, why don't you sit down, have a cup of coffee with us?
Oh, by all means.
Yeah.
It'll warm you up for your trip home.
Well, thank you.
Say, George.
Yes, Ellen.
Do you realize that today is just 10 years to the day that we came to Brunswick?
Yes, a lot has happened in those 10 years.
Oh, you can say that again.
Things were really tough in those days. We worked ourselves to the bone.
Where'd we get all the energy? I guess we just couldn't imagine when we came here that where we would be today.
Well, we worked for it. But then again, maybe this was the cause of it all. Remember when I brought this back from Brazil? The old witch doctor that gave it to me told me to always keep it with me and it would ward off evil spirits.
Coffee's on.
Maybe we should be grateful to him for all the good luck we've had through these years.
Well, George, I think there's someone we should be grateful to, all right. but it isn't that witch doctor.
Oh, you mean old Bumbridge?
No. Although, there's a lot that we do owe to him. No, I'm thinking that we should be grateful to God. No, he's blessed us in a great many ways, George. Oh, I know that you and Dee Dee recently lost your child. And a while back, we had a death in the family. It was a most depressing experience for both of us. But we got over it. So will you. Now, as far as Bumbridge is concerned, I think that we shouldn't forget that he was the one who gave us our first opportunity in the business world.
Oh, Alan, we worked for everything we have. If it wasn't for us, he wouldn't be able to build 3 new plants. You know, he's the most difficult man that I've ever met. And yet everything in life comes to him.
Well, we don't know everything about his life.
Well, we don't need to know everything. We know he was born rich and handsome. He's brilliant. He automatically married a very rich girl. He hasn't had to worry about a thing all his life.
Well, I guess some people just have it made.
And there's something else, Alan. You know, he's never made a profession out of being religious. I don't think he's wondered for a moment about his blessings coming from God. You know, every time I see that man, I get fascinated, and I'm angry, really angry.
Angry at Bumbridge?
Yes, that hardly describes it. Well, perhaps my anger is because every time I see him, he's so relaxed and healthy and self-assured. You know, Alan, my health hasn't been too good, and sometimes I can hardly make it to work. And I get there, and there's that man smiling, probably on his way off to another vacation.
George, he's a wealthy man. He can afford to do it.
Yes, but it just doesn't seem fair, Alan. It's not just that some people have to kill themselves to make a living. And there he is, an unbeliever, self-centered, very prosperous, and apparently happy.
Coffee's ready.
Oh, that smells good, Joy. Come on. I bet Bumbridge's wife can't make coffee like the stuff you're going to sample right now. Joy! Joy, I'm home.
Alan? Alan, did you see George?
No.
Really? He was looking all over for you. Oh, I don't know when I've seen him so upset. Didn't he reach you at the office?
No, I wasn't there all afternoon. Oh. I wonder what could be bothering him.
Oh, wait a minute. I think I hear a car now. Yes, he's coming up the driveway. I'll get it.
Okay.
Come in, George. Alan's home now. Oh, let me take your coat.
No thanks, Joy. Joy, would you mind leaving Alan and me alone for a moment?
Well, no. Of course not, George.
What is it, George? You look a little upset.
Alan, you had better sit down. Alan, I don't think our witch doctor's charm is working for us today. As if what I've just heard at the office isn't bad enough. On the way over here, I saw an accident in which several people were killed, including an innocent child.
Oh, no. But, George, what happened at the office?
Nothing except 10 years of our lives have just blown up in our faces, that's all. Alan, our jobs are about to vanish.
What are you talking about?
It's not official yet, but in a week or two, we will get a fat severance check. Perhaps a letter of appreciation, and that's it. 10 years gone.
All right, look, George, would you hold on for a second and just tell me what this is all about?
Well, it's very simple, Alan. Our company is merged with another company. They're sending over 2 men to replace us in our work.
I don't believe it. Say, maybe we ought to talk to Bumbridge.
That's not going to do any good. Anyway, he's off on a vacation. Probably by design, so that he can avoid explaining to us why he's throwing us out.
Well, surely something can be done about it.
You can bet there is, and I've got a couple of ideas. Now, where are you going to be at 10 o'clock tonight?
Huh?
I'll be here. I'll be here at 10 o'clock tonight to tell you my plan.
Well, why can't you tell it to me now?
I can't because Dee Dee is too upset. I had no idea that she'd take the news so badly.
That's why I asked Joy to please leave the room. I had to get a doctor. That's why I have to get back right away. I'm sorry. Of course, I'll see you later tonight.
Fine.
Well, what was that all about?
Oh, Joy, I think you'd better sit down. I'm afraid that I have some bad news for both of us.
Hi, George. Come on in.
Thank you. George, do you mind if Joy joins us? After all, we're all in this thing together, and she knows as much about it as I do.
Okay, folks, let's get together and I'll tell you my plan.
Okay.
Well, folks, that's my plan. Now, I'll admit it sounds pretty vicious on the surface, but there's absolutely nothing else to do. So what do you think about it? Will you join me?
I don't know, George. Look, maybe you'd better give us a little time to think this matter over.
Well, I checked it out, Alan. It's entirely legal. The clients that we brought to the Bumbridge Company will undoubtedly come with us to the new company that we'll form. How do they know what kind of treatment they'll get with the new Bumbridge Company?
All right. Anyway, just give me a little time to think it over. After all, so much is happening right now.
Well, Alan, we'll have to move fast. And if you feel you can't make it, I hope you let me know right away. I don't want to miss the opportunity of the next 25 years simply because I didn't move fast enough.
Hello, George. Let me take your coat.
Thank you, Joy.
Please, sit down.
Thank you. Well, Alan, how are you feeling?
Fine. How are you?
Well, let's come right to the point. Have you decided to come in with me on the new business?
Well, George, Joy and I talked this over. We rather searched our souls, and the answer we came up with is, well, I don't think we can go ahead with it, George.
Well, I see. Do you mind telling me why?
Well, George, this was a religious rather than a business decision.
Mm-hmm.
You see, we both felt that the moral issue at stake was something that deep down inside of us we just simply couldn't overlook. Now, George, the Bible clearly states that we must not render evil for evil. Oh, I know. I know we've both been mistreated. But that doesn't give us the privilege of mistreating those who were responsible.
I see. Well, these are times for brutal frankness among friends. What makes it possible for so many evil things in the world today is that morally strong people like yourselves allow the unprincipled to exploit you and take advantage of you.
Oh, I don't think that's true, George.
Oh, now, come on, Joy. Now, I come from a very religious family. My mother and my aunt are about as religiously involved as anybody can get. So I know all the religious arguments. So you just tell me one thing and give me an honest answer. Why does God permit evil?
Well, Alan could probably answer it better, but, well, I think one reason is to enable us to deepen our understanding of him.
Mm-hmm. All right. Then what about my child? She developed leukemia. After months of suffering, she died. Now, she was innocent. Absolutely innocent. She didn't even know what sin was. Now, how is she going to profit from this experience? She's dead, I tell you. She's dead.
George, that question has a very reasonable answer presented to us in the Bible.
Oh, come on now, people. Don't brush me aside that way. Many use that method to avoid giving an answer when they don't know the answer. Why are there tornadoes where the good and the bad suffer alike? Huh? Why are there earthquakes where the believers and the non-believers are left homeless, where many are destroyed? Why are innocent people killed? And why does a church, for example, burn down?
George, the question of why God permits evil is as old as man. The question isn't stated exactly in those words in the Bible, but the Bible does explain why God permits evil. And that explanation is in the plan of God as a whole.
Well, all right, Alan, I have time to listen. Go ahead and explain God's plan for the permission of evil.
Fine. George, first I'd like to remind you of the illustrations that the Bible gives us to help understand the question. I'd like to refer you to the experiences of the prophet Job.
Yes, I remember. We had a fine discussion about Job one evening.
Certainly Job experienced a lot of evil, and he was a righteous man, too. He lost all his wealth, his sons and daughters all perished, his wife turned against him and advised him to curse God and die. And he lost his health.
Well, with all the things that have happened to me, I feel quite a bit like Job myself. Why? Why is that?
Job asked the same question. Now, his would-be comforters tried to convince Job that the reason he was suffering was because he had committed some gross sin, that he was keeping a secret. Oh, but Job knew better than this. Well, after he had asked his friends for advice, the Lord spoke to Job and asked him a series of questions. "Where were you," the Lord said to Job, "when I laid the foundations of the world?" He asked Job if he understood the law which controls the tides of the sea. Oh, he asked him a series of questions, all designed to convince Job that there were a great many things, insofar as God was concerned, that he didn't understand. So, why should he be overly concerned if he didn't understand why he was being allowed to suffer so severely?
I think that's a point which would be well for us all to remember. It's so easy to conclude that just because we don't know the answer to a question, that there is no answer.
Well, when you come right down to it, there are a million and more things in connection with the world and the universe that we don't understand, but the Creator does.
George, I am glad to hear you express your belief in that fact. But to get back to Job, after the Lord had finished questioning him, Job said to God, "I know that thou canst do everything, and that no thought can be withholden from thee. I have heard thee by the hearing of the ear, but now mine eye seeth thee."
In other words, Job learned that the divine purpose in allowing him to suffer was that he might attain a clearer vision of God. Since he gained such an increased understanding of God, his brief period of suffering must have seemed to him like an invaluable experience.
Yes, I remember from our discussion of Job that he was restored to health, he regained his wealth, and he lived long enough to father another family of children. That's wonderful, but meanwhile, his original children remain dead, just as my child is dead. Now, how can they benefit from their experience of suffering? And there are countless millions of others in the same category. It's fine to get a better understanding of God, but what good does it do if you're dead?
Well, George, I'd like to remind you of the forbidden tree from which our parents first partook, and by which death entered the world, was designated as the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Now, although death was the result from our parents partaking of this tree, nevertheless, the fact that they did partake implies that they and their children shall be given full knowledge of good and evil.
Well, certainly the human race has had plenty of opportunity to learn about evil, and experience, they say, is the best teacher. But how many have profited from this? With the exception of the present dying generation, all the rest are dead. Now, it seems to me that this entire lesson has come to nothing.
Now, George, on that point, I'd like to read you a paragraph or two from this little book called Why God Permits Evil. Now, these chapters are under the heading the first and second lessons. Now listen. The fact presents itself that few in all the ages have profited by their experience with evil. Indeed, many have been turned to unbelief by it. This is understandable, and if we were to base our conclusions on man's limited abilities and his restricted viewpoint, there would be no satisfactory answer as to why God permits evil. In the limited viewpoint of many, death is the end of everything. To others, it is the end of all opportunity to learn and to profit from past experiences. But this viewpoint is not supported in the Bible. According to the Bible, those who are asleep in death will be awakened from that sleep and given an opportunity to profit from the experiences of the present life. Just as it often happens now, the difficult and distressing experiences of today are often understood and appreciated the following day or days. So it will be on a grander scale as those who are now sleeping in death are awakened and enter another term, as it were, in their school of experience.
Alan, that's very reassuring, but are you sure that there is to be an awakening of the dead?
Well, the Bible makes that very clear. It says, for example, that just as all in Adam die, so all in Christ shall be made alive.
But why does the Bible say that all will be made alive through Christ?
Because Christ redeemed mankind from death by his own death. This is referred to in the Bible as the ransom. The Bible states that Christ died as ransom for all, and that this would be understood by all in due time. Now, George, just as we all experience evil in this life, when awakened, in the favorable time of Christ's kingdom, we shall experience good, and thus, by contrast, will be in a position to choose between the two.
Well, it would be interesting to hear more about this, but I do have to be getting along. Dee Dee is waiting for me.
George, I'd like you to take this little book on why God permits evil home with you. I think you'll find it very interesting.
Thank you, Alan. I'd like to increase my knowledge on the subject now.
Good night, George.
Good night, Joy and Alan.
Alan, I hope you've been able to help George.
Well, Joy,
He's terribly upset.
if he can believe in the promises of God, that little book on why God permits evil will help him.
I'll get it.
George.
Joy, where's your husband?
He's right inside. Come on in.
Hi, George.
Hi, Alan.
Hey, you're looking well.
And I'm feeling
Oh,
fine.
yes, George, you're looking perfectly wonderful.
George, did you go to your office this afternoon?
No, as a matter of fact, I was over at the plant.
Well, you've got a piece of news waiting on your desk.
What's up now?
This is from Bumbridge.
And in it, he explains that he didn't know about our replacement. He was away on vacation, and he's reversed the ruling of the board of directors, and we have our jobs back with a 5-year contract, which is renewable.
Hey, that's wonderful news, isn't it, Joy?
You see? Job got his family and his wealth back, and you two boys have gotten your jobs back.
Hey, George, I hope you didn't get started on that new plan of yours.
No, fortunately I didn't. The talk we had together sort of slowed me up on it. But you know, I've been reading that book you gave me, and it's wonderful, wonderful. You know, it reminded me of the expression, where there's life, there's hope. But of course, that limitation doesn't apply to God, the great creator of the universe, because he's able to restore life, and he will do so with the favorable condition of Christ's kingdom prevailing and with the dead being awakened from their long sleep and death, the people, like Job, will then be able to see God in his true light.
Right. Then they'll recognize the value of the experience through which they've passed. Now, with this understanding, they'll realize that the few short years of hardship they suffered while under condemnation of death were as nothing in comparison to the eternity of joy that stretches out before them under the panoply of divine love.
Yes, and I'm glad that we can look forward to the joy of seeing our child again.
And friends, the little book, Why God Permits Evil, is available to you free. All you need to do is to ask for it. Broadly speaking, evil is that which produces unhappiness. Unkindness in human relationships does this. Accidents, war, sickness, and death likewise cause unhappiness. Why does God allow a helpless, innocent infant to die? The Bible reveals the basic reason for divine permission of evil in all its ugly forms, and this answer is clearly set forth in the little book, Why God Permits Evil.
To view the booklet online, visit www.dawnbible.com, or to receive a hard copy of the booklet by mail, send us your name and postal mailing address and ask for the booklet by name. The title of the booklet for this program is Why God Permits Evil. Send an email to dawnbible@aol.com. The booklet will be mailed to you free and without obligation. And now, goodbye, and may God bless you.